Yeah, hi, good morning or good evening, everyone. Yes, in this section, so we are going to look into that. So, how do we add the user or how do you provide that user with the super user privileges? That's admin user privileges. Yeah, so let me do some small activity here. So, first, let me create one user. User add. I'm just creating that with the default user ID and with the shell as a login shell, that is bin bash, and username is rnstech1. Yeah, so okay, fine. So that's a group already at the previous sections we were doing this, right? That's already exists. That's fine. Now if I check it, cat etc the password file. Okay, so it is not created. Let me just add it with -g rnstech1 itself. I'm just adding that the same group. Yeah, fine. So rnstech1 user has been created and he's belong to the rnstech1 group itself. The same group I am assigning that, and this is the user home directory and bin bash, the shell. And I'm going to set up the password for this user. The password rnstech1. I'm assigning that welcome and welcome. Fine. So the user has been created and password also has been set up that. Now I would like to log in with this user. How do we switch to this user? su rnstech1. I'm changing that. Now I'm running this command so far with Vagrant, but now I would like to work with that rnstech1. Now I'm switching to that rnstech1 user by using su command. Su, that is switch user. And it is asking the password. Yes, what are the password? I have set up that. I have entered. Now I have successfully logged into this rnstech1 user. And if I check it, that's ID. Yes, I'm that rnstech1 user, and this is my group. And yes, that's a secondary groups also rnstech1. Fine, good. But the permissions point of view, now this one already we had it in the user section itself. This is not the new concept. But permission, now if I would like to access that, the etc shadow file can access by the normal users. No, right? That is permission denied, because he is not belong to that super user. He is just having normal user. Normal user doesn't have that super user privileges. But now I would like to use this user, or I would like to provide this user super user privileges. That means we need to add this user to the sudo user or super user privileges group. If I added this user to the group, then he can get it all the super user privileges also, right? Yes, for that what we can do this is, yes, we will add this user to the group. But what is that the group that is available is, yes, if we just check it in the group section, cat etc the group, we have this one of the group which contains like the super user privileges, that is wheel group. And the CentOS systems we have wheel group, or if you are working this Ubuntu, you can find it sudo group, sudo. So if I add that any user to this wheel group, then that user is having that full privileges. So let me check it with the idea of this Vagrant user. Okay, it is not having anything. Okay, fine. Yeah, now this rnstech1 user, he is not the administrator, right? He's not having the administrator privileges. But I would like to provide that to this user administrator privileges. Then what is the group that we can use it? Yes, we can add this user to this group. Then automatically he will get that super user privileges. So on the CentOS we have the wheel group, as a default group, sudo permissions. And on the Ubuntu system, we have the sudo group. Yeah, now let me add it. Let me change, or let me modify that user to the group. Which group I would like to add it is, that is wheel. And which one? RNSTech one user. Okay, I have modified. And now let me log in once again. Switch to that user RNSTech one. And let me check it ID now. Now this user is belong to the wheel group also. Normal, the default group is RNSTech one. And we are adding this now. We have assigned this to the wheel group. Now if we check it that cat etc shadow, can he run with the sudo? Yes, he is able to run it, and it is asking the password anyway. Fine, that is has to enter the password. Yes, now he should able to access the file. So that is the point what we have this here. It is wheel is the default group which is available from the CentOS system, or if it is the Ubuntu. So here we have the wheel group, but if it is the CentOS sudo group, sorry, Ubuntu sudo group. Yeah, if you assign there's any user to that wheel group on CentOS system, then that user can get it administrator privileges. Yeah, so that is one point. How do we add that, or how do you provide that user to this the sudo privileges is add that user to the wheel group. Yeah, that is one point. Understanding that's the how do we provide that administrator privileges to the normal users. Yeah, so let me before going to closing this users and group section, let me give that one more some small commands on that users. How do we monitor it, or what all the users are logged in, and history of that users. Yes, some more commands. Before talking about those commands, so within that the Linux system, the users. Now you see this like we have logged in as, or we have switched to that RNSTech one user, right? But actual user is which we have logged into the system as vagrant user. So the point is the vagrant, whatever the user I have logged into the system, vagrant is the user which we can call it is a real user. He's a real user which we have used it that. But after that we have switched to that RNSTech one or some XYZ user or other users. Then that user will call it as, so what is that user? RNSTech one, right? We were changing that. We were switching before. So this user we are using to run some commands. But this user, what we call this is EUID, that is effective users. So total 2 users. One is logged in users, that is real user, where who are logged into the system. But after login, to start the services or to stop the services, we switch to that other user IDs. Those other user IDs will call it as effective user IDs. Yeah, so this is one concept, just remember that. So now we have this the vagrant user. Suppose if I switch to that sudo su. Now which user I have logged in? I have logged in with root user. If I check it with that ID, so he's the effective user. So real user vagrant, and we switch to that effective user, that is root user. And whenever we are verifying that who am I, how do you verify this which user you have logged in? Who am I? Who am I if I run it? What did he say in this? The effective user it is showing, that's the current user. The commands which are running that. Here if I'm running any command is nothing but that is with we are running with the root user. That is current effective user. And suppose id hyphen, if I use it id command, yes, that is also giving that the logged in user, or we can get it the username with id hyphen the un, that is username, we can use it. Yes, this is also giving that username. Yes, who am I or id, these commands are giving that effective users information. But if I use it who command, the who, what is the purpose of the who? Who is going to helpful? Who are all the users are logged into the system? Yeah, if I use it who is given that? Not the root user. That is given that vagrant user. So it is actual, that is our real user who has logged in. That user is given that, but not effective user. Yeah, id command or who am I commands are current logged in user or currently connected user. That user's information it is going to give that. But who is the command which is going to give that? That is actual real user who try to log into the system. That user information it is going to give that. And id is effective user id. And who is going to give that? Real user id. Yeah, there is some slightly difference. Yes, who command, whenever you run it, we see that is the different user, and whenever we run it id is the current user, we see that. But why the who is going to give that different is the real user who has logged into the system. That user is tracking by the who command, and id is that current the user which you are using to run the commands. That user information it is going to give it that. Yeah, that is the some points which we can understand it. And last but not the least, yes, if you'd like to know that all like current logged in users, yes, w also we can use it. Yes, that is it is going to give the more information. Who is giving that? Just user information, the user, and which the device file he is accessing that, and at what time it has been logged. But w, if you just run it, it is giving that up. Yes, the system was when it was up, and how many users are currently logged in, and what is the load average of the system, and it is giving that the user information, and what is the like a terminal it has been using that, and from which system he has logged in, and the login is on which yeah, the login at the rate of that is the system time point of it is giving that, and idle time, CPU times. Yes, the complete the information, more information it is giving that. And you see this last also one more command. Yes, last reboots the complete the reboot history information, who has done, and from which system it has been done, what is the terminal it has used, when it was done, the complete the reboot information also we can get it by just running that last command. So it was started just like May 27th and still logged in that. Yes, I didn't shut down that. And like that, the user based also we can get it. Last and username, if you give that user, how many times he has restarted, when he has restarted. Yes, that's complete information of this restart of that user also we can get it by using last and username. If I run that only last, it is all that, yes, users information, and before it was rebooted, reboot information, and when the last was rebooted, that's also you can get it. Last reboot, yes, this was done on these dates and these times the reboot was done, and the root user has it restarted at any time or not. Yeah, so that's the some more like monitoring information, users monitoring. Yes, users when they have logged in, when they have started or restarted the system, and yeah, what is that real user id and effective user id, who is going to give that real user id, and id is going to give that effective user ids. Yeah, these are all some more points also required to understand it whenever we are working with the users. Yeah, so that's the overall concept on the users and groups. So that's understanding about file systems and important commands, users management, user add, user del, user mod, password command, change command, and groups related, group add, group modification, group deletion, and groups command, and id command, who command, w command, last command. Yeah, all these commands are going to helpful that which belong to that users related, related, login shell related. How do you switch that one user to another user? Su. How do you run the commands with the super user privileges? That is sudo and the commands. Yes, all these points, just keep this in mind. And the very important, the users and groups and the files and file permissions, as what we were understanding, those points with these users and groups. Yeah, they're all the important concepts on the Linux system whenever you are working. Yes, keep this in mind and try to practice it and work it on it. That. Yeah, thank you. That's all from my side from this section.